sort out the webinar on YouTube and get us recording. Okay, right, and I shall disappear and I will click launch and start the webinar if everyone is good to go.
Okay.
Excellent. Right, let me turn myself off. I'll see you on the other side. When we finish, by the way, it will do its usual Zoom thing where it will just boot you out of the session. So thank you all once again for joining us, and apologies for the abrupt ending, as ever, with Zoom webinars.
Right, thank you. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this webinar introducing the Archaeological Achievement Awards. My name's Neil Redfern. I'm the Executive Director of the Council for British Archaeology, and we as an organisation have taken on the running of the awards. I'm going to shortly hand over to the chair of the steering group, Carenza Lewis, who will host our discussion this morning. Just to let you know that we are really keen to have any questions or topics that you might want us to look at registered in the chat or on the Q&A, and I'll be around in the background making sure that the discussion group can actually draw on those questions. So please do start asking your questions straight away. And we look forward to a really interesting discussion. So I'm going to hand over to Carenza now, who will introduce the panel to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Neil. Good morning, everybody. It's great to see you all here. It's a really exciting event, and we're really looking forward to the future of these awards. But first, I'd like to ask everyone who's here in this conversation today to introduce themselves. I'll just go around my Zoom screen. Neil, first, your top left for me.
So, as I said, I'm the Executive Director of the Council for British Archaeology. We are effectively running the awards, and we are really excited with the potential that the awards will have.
Okay, and Paul next, please.
Hi, I'm Paul Belford. I'm Chief Executive of the Clwyd Paris Archaeological Trust, and I'm here representing Wales today.
And Tim.
Hello, I'm Tim Malim. I'm chair of the Federation of Archaeological Managers and Employers, which represents the commercial sector within the UK and the Republic of Ireland.
Thank you very much. And James.
Good morning, I'm James Kyle. I'm the chairperson of the Institute of Archaeologists of Ireland, and I'm happy to say that we're one of the nominating bodies for the awards.
And Laura, you're muted, Laura. Oh, well done.
Hi, my name's Laura Hampton, and I'm a founding member of the European Society of Black and Allied Archaeologists, and I'm representing England today.
Thank you very much. And Keith?
Hello, good morning. I'm a trustee of the CBA. I'm based at Queen's University Belfast. My name's Keith Lilly, and I'm representing Northern Ireland.
Thank you very much. And Becky?
Hi, I'm Becky Jones. I head up the Archaeology and World Heritage team at Historic Environment Scotland, and I'm representing Scotland today.
Thank you very much. And Fiona.
Good morning. My name's Fiona Gale, and I'm a CBA trustee living in Wales.
Okay, so we've got, and I'm Carenza Lewis. I'm a trustee of the CBA, and I'm the chair of the awards panel, or the awards steering group, rather. We're here today because the CBA has taken on the running of these awards, and we've put together a steering group from across the sector, and as you can see, that's represented in everyone here today. We're delighted that we are joined by colleagues and friends from across the island of Ireland, as well as across Great Britain, to help us celebrate and share our archaeological achievements. To reflect this wider geographical scope, we're pleased to announce today the new name for the awards, which will be called the Archaeological Achievement Awards. James, would you be able to say something about what you think this change will bring from the perspective of archaeologists in the Republic of Ireland, as well as the United Kingdom?
Thanks, Carenza. Definitely. I think at a time when we seem to be having enforced divisions on all of us, I think the name change to the Archaeological Awards embraces the entirety of the United Kingdom, north and south of Ireland, Wales, England, and Scotland. And I think it's fantastic to have that level of inclusivity at a time when recognition for our industry is very, very important. We look at the landscape as it is today with the closure of, with what's occurred in Sheffield University and closer at home here with our own Institute of Technology in Sligo. Their archaeology program has been wound down, sadly, and it's important that there is a level of recognition for the good work that is done by archaeologists. I think we've all seen time and again these fantastic discoveries have been championed, but not so much so the people behind those discoveries, or the why or the where. And I think it's a great opportunity to bring us together as all the parts of a very diverse profession. I think it's an opportunity for us to generate some good press. I've seen far too much bad press over the years for archaeology and archaeologists, particularly in the commercial world. I think it's a great opportunity to showcase the hard work of archaeologists, and not just the usual suspects, but all archaeologists. And it shows society as a whole and ourselves the value of our work. Sometimes we can be a little bit blasé, in terms of the things we've seen as archaeologists. So I think it'll really help to generate additional interest in the profession. And I think we've got an amazing range of categories. I think we've covered everything we possibly could, and to demonstrate to everybody how good and how valuable these awards can be. And I'm very happy to hear that our own National Monument section here in Ireland and all of the organisations in general are getting behind this and will support it with funding. So, I think it's brilliant, and it bodes well for the future.
Thank you very much. I think we'd all agree with that. It's a fantastic sense of everyone being together and wanting to move forward and grow and support archaeology and archaeologists and everyone who loves and enjoys archaeology today and in the future, whether they're professionally involved or whether they're members of the wider public or volunteers or everybody really, and for future generations. So what we'd like to do now is just introduce each of the award categories briefly. We spent a lot of time on the steering group discussing what categories of awards should be made, bearing in mind what other ones were available across the sector, and what we particularly felt was really important that we wanted to be able to recognise in archaeology in Ireland and the UK today, looking across the area and indeed beyond it. So we'll go through each of the 6 main categories, and I'll just ask each panellist to say a few words about each one. So the first award is the Archaeological Innovation category, and Tim, would you like to tell everyone about that?
Yes, thanks, Corinne. This category aims to celebrate innovative approaches and techniques in archaeology to champion the use of imaginative practice and ways to do things differently.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. As I say, the introductions are very brief, otherwise we will run out of time, but there'll be plenty of opportunity for questions later. So the next award is for public dissemination or presentation. Becky, could you say a few words about that?
Thank you. Yes, this is quite a broad category and it can include a wide range of dissemination. Media and other presentations.
Becky, I think we just lost you for a couple of seconds there. Could you perhaps go back a sentence or two?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can, yes.
Sorry, I've just had a message saying my internet connection is unstable. Sorry, I am calling from the Scottish
It's
borders.
the most joyful message of the last 18 months, hasn't it?
Yes. So just say this is a broad category and it can include books, publications, exhibitions, film, social media and other forms of presentation. And it can relate to a specific site or place or indeed to the wider landscape.
Brilliant, thank you very much. So the next award is about engagement and participation. So Fiona, could you say a few words about that?
Thank you, Corinne. So yes, this award is focusing on broadening participation in archaeology in all its forms and not limited to on-site digging, etc., but all the archaeological activities. And the emphasis in the award is on the quality of the participants' experience as much as, or if not more than, the numbers of people taking part. So that's that one summarised, hopefully.
very much. The next award is for Early Career Archaeologist. Keith, could you say something about that, please?
Sure, thanks, Carenza. Yes, so this award will highlight the contribution of an early career archaeologist. For the purposes of this award, an early career archaeologist is defined as an individual studying or undertaking entry-level training, or an individual in the first 5 years of employment as an archaeologist. And this can be after a career break, a career change, and importantly here, is not restricted by age. Nominations should demonstrate why the individual is considered to be an early career archaeologist.
So you can begin your career in archaeology or at any age, which is something we really want to emphasise in these awards. Thank you, Keith. The next award is for activity in learning, training and skills. Paul, could I ask you to take a few words about that, please?
Yes, thank you, Carenza. Yes, learning, training and skills. This is an award to celebrate training, learning and skills across all spheres of archaeological practice, public, advisory, commercial and academic. Nominations for this category should demonstrate innovation in delivering training and skills development, moving beyond traditional lectures and using engaging and interactive learning approaches.
Thank you very much. And then last but by no means least, in these individual award categories, we have the overall award. And Neil, could you say a few words about that, please?
Brilliant. Yes, thank you, Carenza. So we want to also, as a panel, actually look at an award that or an applicant that actually really does stand out to us. So there will be an opportunity for people to nominate, and for all the shortlisted entries in any year to be applicable to this overall category, the Outstanding Archaeological Achievement Awards. The judges will be looking for nominations to demonstrate all of the criteria they might have applied for under an additional award, but also to demonstrate a series of cross-cutting themes, which we'll hear about in a moment, and demonstrate that they've actually designed in long-term sustainable impacts and legacy to their project. So it's something that really shows the long-term benefits of the work that they've actually done.
Thank you very much. And as you'll be able to hear, we're very much focused on archaeology is often thought to be about the past, but we're really thinking about the present and the future in the shape of these awards. And Neil's mentioned the cross-cutting themes, and of course in discussion in the steering group there are a huge number of possible categories we discussed, and we felt some of these, which could have been individual categories, actually were themes that cross-cut across all of these various categories. So we've identified 4 of these: health and well-being, equality, diversity and inclusion, collaboration, and place shaping and placemaking. And I wonder if, Laura, would you be able to say something about these cross-cutting themes for the awards, please?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Carenza. So I'm really happy that I get to announce these cross-cutting themes. These themes are in place to inspire us to really think about the legacy of what we do, how we approach our work, how we share our passion for archaeology, who we're doing it for and why. These cross-cutting themes are perhaps elements of our work that are often thought about as an add-on perhaps. So this is a really good opportunity to enable nominees to communicate how we are working to embed great practice within all aspects of our work. And now more than ever, as James said, it's important for us to think about the connection or reconnection of society and our diverse communities across the UK. So we have the theme of health and well-being, as you mentioned. So research has shown that interaction with heritage or the historic environment and archaeology can be a real positive factor in supporting both individual and community well-being. So this is really about how projects, research or lines of work, for example, seek to address the needs of wider society. So to enable people to improve their health and their well-being in line with the 5 ways of health and well-being that have been developed by the New Economic Foundation. And those 5 ways of health and well-being are to take notice, to connect, be active, keep learning, and to give. Equally, the cross-cutting theme of equality, diversity, inclusion is by all means intrinsically linked to health and well-being, and something that we should be thinking about that underpins all of the award categories. So again, how does our work address wider societal issues? But more explicitly, how can we work to eradicate prejudice, discrimination on the basis of an individual or group of individuals' protected characteristics, or to ensure fair treatment and opportunity for all? So this could mean that communities that we work within or public, it could be about the people that we're doing the work with, it could be an organisational initiative or the work of what I like to call the activist in residence, for example. Is there someone on your team or in your organisation or a volunteer who's influenced positive change or challenged the way that you think or the way that you work to provide better public and social value under this umbrella of equality, diversity and inclusion? And then we have collaboration, which is, of course, about how we work and who you're working with. So nominees should demonstrate collaborative working across at least 2 of the following, so commercial, academic, and or public archaeology, or they should be able to evidence collaborative working with partners from other areas, such as the natural environment, or again, health and well-being, for example. And lastly, the cross-cutting theme of place shaping or place making. So to demonstrate how archaeology contributes to the process of or is included in place shaping outcomes. So this is really about communicating value, what we do or what can we do to bring, what do we bring to the table that others can't when it comes to place shaping and making. So really these 4 cross-cutting themes should hopefully inspire some real creative thought around each of the award categories and encourage also a wider pool of nominees. For example, the Innovation Award, you don't need to have developed some billion-dollar tech. You could be using or reusing existing resources or techniques to do something differently. And this has had a marked positive impact on a local community or enabled more people to benefit from archaeology. So essentially they're about footprint, about facilitating change, addressing need and legacy and impact. And this could be at a micro or macro level, which hopefully brings us sort of nicely to the next part of the discussion session. So I'll hand back over to you, Carenza.
Thank you very much, Laura. That was brilliant. And I hope that you can all see that we are striving to make these awards as broad as possible, but also that it's very much not about size or numbers as such. It's about impact and quality and the difference that's being made, all with the aim of helping nurture and grow archaeology and nurture and grow our society as well. So what we wanted to do was take a little bit of time to have a discussion about the role of archaeology in society and the value it creates. And also give us the chance to have a bit of a discussion about that and to give the audience a chance to ask any questions. And as chair of the steering group developing these new Archaeological Achievement Awards, the AAA awards, I do hope they will help archaeology help our world, because I know how it does do this in so many ways. Archaeology enriches the lives of people of all ages and backgrounds, and Laura's just referred to this. Millions every year enjoy the thrill of connecting with the past in its tangible physical form, that archaeology is its USP really, whether that's through visits to sites or on screen or through active participation. And we know this really does benefit people. There's increasing evidence, increasingly scientifically rigorous evidence showing the positive impact that archaeology has on health and well-being for people with all sorts of, from all sorts of backgrounds and with all sorts of attitudes. Archaeology also enhances places. Again, this is another cross-cutting theme that Laura's mentioned. Local distinctiveness relies so heavily on heritage, which helps make places better for people to live in and work in, improving the quality of their lives. And of course, heritage boosts the economies. In England alone, we know that it does this by more than 30 billion a year. And that's through everything from archaeological jobs to tourism. There are more than 200 million visits made to heritage sites in 2019. I'm obviously not using the 2020 data here for very obvious reasons. And archaeology can also help build more inclusive communities and identities, because again, another USP of archaeology is the way it connects us with people of the widest range of lived experience over time, not just those who were rich or powerful or literate. And in this way, archaeology helps us tell us about the world around us and helps us sustain it for the future, because it helps us understand long-term change at scales ranging from single human actions right through to climate change over eons. And so archaeology really is one area where Ireland and the UK have a world-class track record. And I'm not one to make those sort of boasts lightly, but whether in research, discovery, preservation, interpretation, education, or participation, this is absolutely priceless in so many ways, as I've just said, as we've all sort of, I think, highlighted from our discussion of the awards so far. But as James alluded to, there are changes afoot and society seems to be changing, particularly in some of our countries, changes proposed to planning and higher education, and culture wars are just three elements. But even those alone are a triple whammy attack, which threatens all of the good that archaeology has done, is doing, and can do. And so that's really why I hope our Archaeological Achievement Awards will help archaeology help us all. So I'd like to open up the discussion to our panelists and to any audience who please type your questions into the chat, and we will bring those forward for discussion. Thinking about the value of archaeology, how the awards may help, just to ask any questions. And I'd like to start off by saying, announcing really the 2021 awards ceremony will be hosted in Scotland later this year. Vicky, what do you think the awards will mean for archaeology in Scotland?
I think it's fantastic that we're the first country to be hosting these very prestigious awards, and we're absolutely delighted to be doing so. As I'm sure you're aware, Scotland's had an archaeology strategy now for a number of years, and the vision behind that is all about making archaeology matter and increasing its impact and relevance. And actually, a lot of the cross-cutting themes that Laura's just identified and you've also expanded on, Carenza, are actually very much at the heart of what we're trying to do. It's actually about recognizing the relevance and everything that's happened over the last year and a bit. And people are actually having much more recognition and engagement with their local surroundings. And actually what we as archaeologists can actually do to provide that character and enrichment and depth to people's understanding of where they live. And, you know, and that moves everything right up to the current discussions about climate change. And obviously later this year, Glasgow will be hosting COP26. So we're all thinking about actually what is our role in relation to climate change? What can we, you know, whether it's adaptation and mitigation, what's the impact on our historic environment, and what can we as archaeologists talk about the time depth that you've just mentioned with regards to climate change in the past, and actually what we bring, and it's actually thinking about how we build a more inclusive society and have health and well-being very much at its heart. So, you know, for a number of reasons, the fact that we're driving forward and trying to raise the profile of archaeology in Scotland, this is really great for us.
Brilliant, thank you. No, it is really exciting. Has anyone else got any comments or questions?
I'd like to pick up Carenza on some of that as well, because clearly people, the public in general, will understand about archaeologists looking into the past and trying to understand cultures and how we lived and developed. But the relevance for that, for today's world and the future-proofing our world, is perhaps not recognised. And of course, archaeology provides immense information about how different cultures adapted to their environments in the past and created long-term sustainable methods of living in pretty inhospitable areas sometimes. And so there has been a recent book produced by Erica Koopman on reinventing sustainability, how archaeology can save the planet. And I recommend it to all of you as a very, very good book. And it needs to get out there. It needs to get out to agriculturalists and policymakers and politicians to understand that if we actually use the kind of techniques that our forebears used in different environments, which have been investigated by archaeologists, then these provide solutions to a lot of the problems that we're facing today as part of climate change.
Yes, no, I absolutely agree. I noted the European Archaeological Council annual meeting this year is on climate change and archaeology, and it's such an important topic. And it's interesting, isn't it, that while archaeology also shows us how long-term change has occurred, I think it also brings home really strongly actually the massive impact that humans do have. You know, we leave these physical traces that endure for generations and generations and generations. And I think it's really easy for people today to think in our throwaway culture that nothing really endures, nothing really makes a difference. And then you look at something that's there from hundreds or even thousands of years ago, and you look at changes in sediment levels or flooding patterns or whatever, and you know, actually that impact really lasts. And I think there's something about archaeology and that tangible physical proof that it offers, that I think in this sort of digital age, where certainly for the last 18 months, so much of our engagement has been very virtual. That sort of physicality is something that I think archaeology just really has such impact in.
I think we can all agree on that. And again, looking at examples from Wales, and actually the example of the Cherish project, which has been undertaken with our colleagues in the Republic of Ireland. So it's looking at stuff on both sides of the Irish Sea, really valuable work, looking at how particular sites and particular environments have been impacted by climate change in the past, and learning those lessons for the future. And I think we have a real job of work to do, though, and I hope that these awards will help us do that in articulating the value that archaeology can bring to these discussions going forward. I think we can all agree in this room, and no doubt everyone else who's in attendance here, that this is very important and a very vital contribution that archaeology can make. But I'm not sure that the awareness in the wider world is yet there. So I very much hope that through these awards and through the work of the CBA and all of us generally, we can raise the profile and the value of archaeology in that respect particularly.
Yes, and it's more important now than ever, I think, really. And I think we all need to work together, and everybody else here, again, to do that. Tim, if you could type the details of that book into chat, How Archaeology Can Save the World, I think everyone would be interested in that.
Yeah, no, I'll do that.
Sales will go up.
James, do you have any thoughts about Paul's comments really about the sort of impact and how to make sure it does gain resonance from an Ireland perspective?
I think just to agree with Paul, the last couple of weeks here, we've had one of the Cherish projects wrap up on a promontory fort down in Kerry, and the engagement with that from the public, I think, has been fantastic.
Breaking up.
I think we've just lost you a little bit. I heard you as far as engagement was fantastic. It might be just the dramatic pause, but we might have lost your signal. Okay, I think I'm still. You're sort of in and out at the moment, James. I think perhaps I'll move on and then come back to you in a moment, James, if you're signal, because I can't hear. Is everyone else having problems hearing?
Yes. Yeah. Could I say something in relation to what you were saying about participation and engagement? People have been meeting virtually, but I think there's a real appetite for people to get back out there, and local groups that I'm see and am involved with are really keen to get out into the landscapes and explore and find out. And as someone who's done quite a lot of that sort of events and activities, you always learn. Everyone learns from those activities. You gain as much as the participants sometimes. It's a really fulfilling experience for everybody.
Yes, it's really nice to have that perspective from you, Fiona, as somebody who's not as professionally involved in archaeology, but from a community and participation perspective, because we feel that is so important to archaeology, because it's important for the way it's done. It helps us learn, but also it's much more importantly, it's what makes the real difference in society. Do you think?
Absolutely, and as archaeologists, we can't hope to, we need ambassadors out there and people who are enthused and enthusiastic about archaeology, about the landscape, about the sites, and finding out more, because and keeping an eye out too, looking after, caring for these places. Without that, we would lose a lot.
Absolutely, thank you. Yes, indeed. James, are you
hopefully
I'll try and finish up what you were saying.
Hopefully, yeah, I was just trying to say that it's great through projects like the Cherish.
It seems like there's some terrible gremlin that every time you say the word cherish, it cuts out. Maybe that's all you need to say about it.
Maybe. I think it's great to be able to demonstrate the inclusivity of archaeology, and to hopefully to bring the wider public in to what we all know and love as archaeologists, as a fantastic profession, and arts which can have a massive impact on society in general if it's allowed.
Yes, no, absolutely. I think we've, when we were putting the awards together, I remember we did think very carefully about the different categories, and the one on archaeological innovation, I think, is an interesting one, because it's about that keeping us moving forward, keeping us thinking about doing things differently. Does anyone have any thoughts about how the awards may help that, nurture that?
Well, I think it's really interesting how 2 years ago there was a major publication by UNESCO on the contribution that cultural heritage, research, scientific work within the UK and Ireland has made in the world stage, and how the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy asked UNESCO to look into this so that they could try and promote the expertise we have in this country to helping elsewhere in the world, and have produced a series of different case studies. So it's a very good topic to have there, category to have for the awards. Obviously, we might not be looking at it on that kind of global stage. We might be looking at it as something much more detailed, like some particular type of scientific process, but it doesn't have to be. It could be something, a different approach to how you manage waterlogged deposits or urban wetlands, or it could be something to do with sampling strategies or digital recording on site, or whatever it might be, how you involve different communities within the work. So it's a broad range if used imaginatively. And one of the things that we wanted to try and do also is to see how within what is often a very process-driven world, we can break down some of those barriers that stop innovation from being allowed to happen.
Well, the sheep are clearly agreeing with somebody anyway.
Sorry, I do apologise. I can't control the sheep.
No, the sheep, great. We love the sheep. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think the innovation is interesting as well, because actually innovating in ways of drawing people in as well. I mean, I think there's a sort of innovation in approaches that will enable wider publics to even contribute to the process by, you know, sharing the work of processing information or you know, all of that sort of thing. You know, we think we can think really imaginatively about how more people get more involved, and not just through visiting sites, not just through participating in field work, but actually through the thinking process or the writing up or the research. You know, we have lots of opportunity, I think, for approaches like that. Absolutely. And to share expertise, and that's why it's so good that across you know, Ireland and the UK, we can share expertise and ideas that even if you've got something that one local CBA group has come up with a really fantastic way of keeping people connected after they've taken part in some field work or involved local schools or something, you know, we can share that through thinking about the awards and through working together. And I really hope we're able to do that. And I'm really optimistic that we will be able to do that, because there's a real feeling, I think, through all of the steering group work that actually we're really keen and happy working together like this, which has been a really joyful experience. We talked about sort of public dissemination and presentation and that sort of thing, but the sort of early career issue as well, I think, is really important. Has anyone got any thoughts about how the awards might impact on that, getting people who are sort of starting out in changing the way they participate in archaeology?
Well, what I found really lovely about these categories is that they do actually interlink. And in the past, there's been a tradition of sort of, well, we'll put public outreach in that box, and we'll put training in this box, and we'll put innovation and skills over there, and so on. And actually, the way these categories are formulated, they all interconnect with each other. And I think that's really, really important. And I'm sure Keith wants to expand on early career development, but in terms of learning, training and skills more generally, I think this is really, really important, because we want to look at the widest possible range of skills. And one skill, I think, must be advocacy and embracing the public and enabling them to help us with our message of what archaeology can give to society. We're very lucky in Wales in having the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, which is an important measuring stick for public bodies and quasi-public bodies. That sets out a number of really quite key strategic goals about by which we consider the well-being of future generations in the actions we undertake today. And I think there's a lot there that we can, with our experience in Wales, we can share with other parts of this archipelago. And so yeah, I just think the interconnectedness of these themes is really, really valuable.
Yeah, I was going to say also with the early career award, it's a real opportunity to embrace new, fresh perspectives as well. So quite often, I know there's a kind of process where people are generally kind of absorbed into the profession, and you know, there's lots of kind of sort of feelings around whether or not somebody's contributions are sort of good enough right at that early career stage. And I still think it's a really good opportunity for those of us who have been working in the sector for a lot longer to kind of turn our attention towards these new ideas and new fresh perspectives. And also I really like that we haven't put an age on the early career archaeologist award. I think that's really important.
Yes, I absolutely agree. Keith, you're nodding there.
Yes, thanks. I was going to, thanks, Laura. Yes, and Corenza. I think early career, you know, let's face it, in the 21st century, careers take all sorts of different interesting sorts of routes, do they not? So, you know, I think having a flexible and open view on that and recognizing that, you know, early career may come to somebody, you know, in their 50s, or it may come to somebody in their 20s, you know, so age is not the determining factor there. But nevertheless, of course, you know, we do need to sort of pin this down a bit. And I think those criteria, which we went through earlier, hopefully will help to do that a bit more. And I think also, to pick up Laura's point as well, I think the cross-cutting themes, and Paul made this point too, the cross-cutting themes really help. So I think they, you know, for an early career archaeologist, those cross-cutting themes maybe kind of say, okay, well, you know, how have I been making a contribution to X or to Y, you know, it's health and well-being. So I think they're really valuable to begin to explore the contribution. That's really what we're looking at here. The award will highlight the contribution of an early career archaeologist, and that can take lots of different forms, can't it? So I really think it's very important that we take that kind of open and inclusive approach as well to identifying what we mean by early career.
And I hope also we can break down some of these they're not really barriers, but they're perceived as barriers often between the different silos within which we tend to operate. We've constructed a very complicated system for doing archaeology, which pits so-called commercial archaeology against other forms of archaeology. And really, we're all archaeologists. We're all engaged in archaeological practice, however we're being funded or whatever the process is. And I do hope that this new relaunched award and the categories in it can help break down those barriers in a really positive way and not discourage people from moving between those categories more fluidly than hitherto.
Absolutely.
I must, from my perspective as the executive director of the CBA, what I really like about what you're hearing is actually one of the biggest challenges archaeology has is this perception that it never changes. Well, actually, archaeology's never ever stood still. Archaeology has always been about innovation as our thoughts and perspectives change. And the really important thing you've got to then take your imagination to is actually none of us were born archaeologists. So each and every one of us have learnt these ideas. We explore these ideas. And for me, when you start looking at the learning award and you start looking at the early career award, it's actually acknowledging you can have a contribution when you ask your very first question in archaeology, because that's the start of a journey through actually how you apply archaeological knowledge and skills, and how we help the wider public understand that and show that is really, really important. And I think it's actually one of the really dynamic natures of archaeology that we suppress. We just hide it. We get very obsessed with the idea that we've got to bring fact and the truth, where actually what we really do is bring a really inquiring mindset. And I think that mindset, that questioning approach, is one we need to be celebrating in terms of addressing some of the issues society faces today. You know, the challenge of living in a dynamic environment. Well, we can show how from past environments about, you know, some of the things you're going to have to address and overcome. So again, I think the really important thing for the awards and listening to what you're saying is showing that openness about what archaeology actually is.
Yes, I think that's a really useful thought, and it comes again to what we're hoping the awards will be able to do, which is about gathering evidence for the benefit of archaeology and recognising that everybody who is nominated for an award will have made an achievement, whether they're ultimate winners or not, and it'll help us make that case, I think, and help aggregate that information, whether it's for climate change or whether it's for participatory methods. Fiona, I can see you keep trying to come in.
Yeah, no, I was only going back to early career archaeologists. I think that award particularly will hopefully be seen as support and help for those early career archaeologists, and also make us, some of us who are a bit longer in the tooth, listen and learn as well ourselves. And I think that has enormous benefit, hopefully, for all of us.
Yes, it's the widest possible range of people. I've done huge amounts of work with the communities and with school groups, you know, teenagers, and the innovation that they can bring methodologically, just because they're not constrained by the kind of you know, habit of practice, the habitus of the way that we've all got used to within.
There's none of that, or you can't do it that way, because you can when you're not constrained, and that's great.
I think if I can come in at that point and say, actually, the public dissemination presentation category that we were talking about, actually the innovation that we have in that, and we've all changed the ways we do with dissemination and presentation over the last year and a bit. I mean, the mere fact that this whole thing is online with all the internet capability issues that we all have to deal with. And I think we've moved as a sector, we've moved as a profession, we're thinking of different ways of doing things, different ways of disseminating. And, you know, the early career people have been critical in that as well, in terms of saying what they want and what they need as they start their archaeological journeys. So actually, you know, we're again, it's back to all these themes sort of crossing across each other. It's innovative. It's actually thinking about that society benefit. What do we actually deliver?
And I think being able to share it as well. I mean, I've had examples of community groups that have come up with brilliant ways of sort of doing exhibitions or disseminate, whether they have online dissemination and in physical exhibitions of test pit digging they've done in their local village or whatever, which they've then shared with other groups that have gone on and used their methods, and they've helped develop them. You know, you get that sense of people developing ideas and sharing them around, much the sort of way that teachers do across different schools. If you've ever been to a history teachers conference, you hear them exciting. They're really, sharing their really exciting ways. So I've got a brilliant way of teaching, the Wars of the Roses or whatever. And people are keen to share. And I think we've got that spirit here in the awards that, and Tim alluded, I think Paul alluded earlier to that siloisation that we sometimes get, which is just because we're working with different priorities in our day-to-day lives. But as we were saying, it's all for the same goal, really, of enabling archaeology to improve, society, help society, and that idea that we can all share each other's work rather than feel we're competing. And the university sector is as bad as anywhere for sort of being slightly pervaded by that, and this sort of marketisation in some areas doesn't help. But the awards are really seeking to get beyond that and I think bring us all together. Across those, and that's why we wanted the cross-cutting themes to come in. Fiona, we can see you. Does anyone else have any thoughts that they'd like to mention, particularly perhaps the overall award we haven't talked about quite as much? Does anyone have any thoughts about that, how that's going to help archaeology?
I could just give a little bit more background. We really did feel that we wanted the ability for the judges to have something where they could look at all of the entrants and also any nominations that someone could specifically put in for this award that really actually nailed those cross-cutting themes. I think that's what we were really interested in, because again, when you sometimes look at individual criteria, that almost narrows it down. But this was a real opportunity to say, no, this actually spoke to us. And so for the judges, because judging anything like this, it's a very personal experience when you see all these applications come in. And so this was a way of actually, saying, okay, yeah, that's something that actually someone's gone to a further degree, a project's taken a step further, and really just to recognize that. So for me, I always found it, I found it really important in the discussions that we actually did that. It's not about saying you're absolutely the best or you've done the best thing. It's actually, no, what achievement have you managed to overcome? What actually have you done in that sort of broader context for those cross-cutting themes?
Yes, I mean the steering group discussions were interesting because we kind of kept adding categories in, we haven't looked at this and we haven't done this and this isn't been recognised, and we could have ended up with 20 different awards, which would have been completely unmanageable and still wouldn't have given us the flexibility to include everything that might come up as an amazing achievement that needed to be recognised. But these cross-cutting themes in the overall award, I think, give us much more flexible scope to actually do that and ensure that they keep refreshed and keep current, and keep relevant, and keep collecting valuable evidence about the impact of archaeology. Has anyone else, we're just moving towards the end of the hour now. Has anyone else got any points they'd like to make, any questions they'd like to raise, anything else really to say about the contribution these awards are going to make? It's always the way, isn't it? We have that sort of saying, okay, there's one last question and everyone just goes silent. It's like taking the last slice of cake, isn't it? No one ever wants to leap into that. James, could I perhaps ask you for a final thought? Because I know you got a little bit cut out earlier with your signal. It's particularly good that we've got Ireland is involved in this as well as the United Kingdom. So can I ask you for a few final thoughts before I hand back to Neil, just to try and bring together perhaps some of what we've been saying about the contribution the awards will make.
Sure thing, Corinza. Thanks very much. I think what I'm hearing from everybody and what I'm hoping is that the awards will help to break down barriers, whether they're perceived barriers or whether they're very real barriers. I'm thinking about the barrier between our two islands. That's been broken down by the name of the awards. The barrier of the hoarding, the commercials, being able to bring people into that site somehow and being able to disseminate the ideas from that site, whether it's the perceived barrier of the entry level into the profession not being recognized, or whether it's perceived gender bias or anything like that. I think the inclusivity is the overriding everything. And I think that's
Thank you very much for that. I'm not sure if you've cut out that, but I think the point that inclusivity is overriding is a great point to finish on, as Laura was making the point very clearly earlier. This is really about what these awards are about in terms of looking at those overarching themes, which are bringing all of these things together, looking at health and well-being, inclusivity and diversity, collaboration and placemaking. So I'd like to thank everybody very, very much for taking part in this really happy announcement of the new Archaeological Achievement Awards. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your contributions. Thank you for your enthusiasm and commitment, and the really interesting thoughts that have been presented by everybody. And it's so nice to feel everybody very much on the same page about all of this as we move forward into the future with archaeology. So I'm just going to hand back to Neil, who will provide a couple of details about next steps. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you, Carenza, and thank you for actually hosting that conversation with us all. That was really, really brilliant. So just a couple of practical points for me. The awards ceremony, we hope, will be in late November, early December 2021, and that they will be hosted by our colleagues in Scotland. So we're really hopeful we'll get north of the border. However, we still do live in a COVID world, and so we are planning to make sure that whatever happens, the awards will go ahead and be virtual if they have to be. So we really don't want to postpone another year. So to that end, we're working with our colleagues and friends in Scotland to make sure that the ceremony will happen at the end of this year. To launch the actual opening of the awards themselves, we intend to do that during the Council of British Archaeology's Festival of Archaeology in July this year. So you will be hearing from us again in July about when the actual categories are open, how you can apply, what the application form process will be. But if you can't wait until then, we are really pleased to say today we will be making live a revamped website for the Archaeological Achievement Awards. So again, you'll be able to get online there. You'll be able to see all the old awards from when they were the British Archaeological Awards. We're not losing that legacy. We are taking that with us. But you'll see there's a new logo, there's a new name, and all the information and updates that you'll need should you want to apply will be on there. But the application process will be opening during the Festival of Archaeology in July, so you'll be hearing more about that then. So it's just for me to say thank you again to absolutely everybody who's helped us with this conversation and those people who've been listening in. For the CBA, this has been a huge innovation. We've done our first live stream via YouTube. So I'm going to be really interested to see how we've got on there and see who's watched and who's engaged. But again, this video will be made available for anyone who's missed it. And so we'll be making sure we get that out on our social media. Finally, I'd just like to thank, obviously, all of the agencies from the home nations and the Republic of Ireland that are supporting us. It's been hugely positive to see that. Their details again will be on the website. And also just to say that if anyone's interested about sponsoring the awards, there are sponsorship opportunities. So again, my challenge is to make the awards sustainable in the long term. So I'd be really happy to hear from anybody if you've got any interest in sponsoring an award category or sponsoring the awards overall. There are plenty of opportunities to do that, and you can talk to me directly about that. So really just to say thank you to everybody. Thank you to all of the fantastic colleagues who've been on this conversation and for embracing the awards so enthusiastically. Thank you.